As far as I could tell, everything just clicked into place. Just like you said, I've loved Sinatra music all my life. Willie Nelson held a secret that haunted him daily for decades. Willie was unable to remain silent after Kris Kristofferson's death. His admission was revealed that Kris was more than simply a musician and friend to him. Willie owes his survival to him during his worst years. Something far more catastrophic, though, exists. Willie kept quiet about it until after Kris passed away. He despised himself for, quote, never being honest with Kris. You will be deeply saddened by Willie's confession regarding those sleepless evenings. You can't bear the weight of some secrets on your own. The little Texas hamlet of Abbott was the site of Willie Nelson's birth on April 29, 1933. Only it was home to over 300 individuals. The worst economic catastrophe that the United States has ever seen, known as the Great Depression, was in its midst at the time. Out of every 4 individuals, 1 was unemployed. In the midst of all this turmoil, Willie's mom up and went. When mother left to get a job, he was just 6 months old, and she never returned. Under no circumstances. His father also departed not long after that. Willie and Bobby were abandoned and left behind with no one to care for them save their grandparents. They stayed with their grandparents, Alfred and Nancy. Nancy was a piano teacher. Alfred was a blacksmith by trade. The family was nearly impoverished. They would staple newspapers to the house's walls in order to shield themselves from the bitter winter winds. Amidst a crumbling world, Willie endured this as he grew up, surrounded by misery and starvation. Willie was picking cotton in the Texas heat after school by the time he was 7 years old, just to help pay for food. His life was on the brink that very year. In 1940, he contracted pneumonia. It was murdering kids all across the world. Since the medicine available back then was subpar, hundreds of children perished annually. Being alive was a miracle for Willie. Though he came dangerously close to death from that illness, he emerged from it with a resilience that would see him through the worst hours of his life. As a 6-year-old, the course of events was altered by an unforeseen event. He received a guitar from his granddad. It was plain and inexpensive, just what they could manage. Still, something clicked the second Willie laid hands on it. He had started penning his first draft by the time the clock struck 7 songs. It wasn't until 1963 that he released his first one, which was likely a modest gospel song. But music helped him get through tough times even when he was a kid. Local pubs were already booking him by the time he was 10. His earnings were higher than the average adult picking cotton for a living. The world at home wasn't free for this musical prodigy who was a young child in dusty overalls. Grandma was a devout Christian. The Abbott Methodist Church had been there since 1899, so she went there. In her house, dancing was taboo. It seemed sinful to her. As the model church lad, Willie would sing in the choir on Sundays. On the other hand, he smoked cigarettes and drank beer in secret. Fearing he would be damned, he was overcome with terror. Furthermore, despite the fact that his dad listened to Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys while Grandma prayed, her view of music was that it was Satan's handiwork. Years down the road, in an unexpected turn of events, Willie purchased the very church to prevent its closure. A heartbreak that he would never forget followed. Unfortunately, Willie's grandpa Alfred passed away from pneumonia in 1939 at the tender age of 6. His father figure, the man who had brought him up, taught him guitar, and loved him unconditionally, vanished without a trace. It was like losing a son, according to Willie. Life became significantly more challenging thereafter. Daily, he was compelled to milk cows. Morning before classes start and put in extra hours just to get through it. A fire was kindled within him by that loss. More and more he became obstinate and self-reliant. He began to govern himself. That's the origin of the rebellious soul. After Willie finished high school in 1950 at the age of 17, he immediately enlisted in the United States Air Force. Despite his desire to serve his nation, his back failed him after only 9 months. When he lifted big machinery, he harmed himself. He was discharged due to the severity of the injuries. In an instant, his aspiration for a retirement from active duty. Back to music he went. Destitute of both cash and purpose, he started working as a radio DJ at Cavan in Vancouver, Washington in 1956 after relocating there. No Place for Me, his debut hit, was recorded there. He emphasized over there, you'll hear a tune named Lumberjack. Willie Nelson went so far as to start his own record company, Willie Nelson Recordings, and sell recordings and autographed images for $1. It was a no-go for Starred Records to release. However, he persisted anyhow. He made a fortune, sold 3,000 books through word of mouth alone on his radio program. Budget constraints persisted notwithstanding this minor achievement. After trying out for a performance called the Ozark Jubilee, he was rejected, so he worked late into the night and cleaned dishes. He returned to Texas after eventually giving up. There he made ends meet by selling vacuum cleaners and Bibles. Even at Encyclopedia Americana, he was a sales manager. His songs later reflected the brutality of his life. While in Fort Worth, he began performing at rowdy honky-tonks. Such locations were tumultuous and aggressive. Night after night, brawls broke out. For Willie's very survival, protection was necessary. Thus, he engaged Paul English to accompany him on drums and keep an eye on him. Paul wore a sinister beard and was known to carry weapons, giving him an eerie appearance. By working together, they ensured that no one dared to cross them. When inebriated outsiders attempted to manage Willie's music, he even got into confrontations with them. However, he learned crowd control and how to make it in the music industry from these challenging nights. A moment that both altered and crushed his heart then came, his course. He was about to be evicted in 1959 and broke. To make ends meet, he peddled his own song Family Bible for $50. Someone else's rendition of that song became extremely popular. At about the same time, he made $150 from the sale of Nighthife. Both singles were huge financial successes, but not in his place. A harsh reality hit him. Own your songs at all times. One day he would be able to use that lesson to amass a fortune. Nashville was his new home by 1960. He slept in his car, chilly and broke, and he was about 30 years old. He was at his lowest point on a winter night, so he lay in the snow and waited to die. He was located at the last possible moment by a buddy. Later at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, a guy by the name of Harlan Howard caught wind of his music. He persuaded Pamper Music to employ Willie for $50 per week. His life was spared by that meager salary. Crazy for Patty Clean was written by him in 1961. Until she heard Crazy, her wife despised her husband's obsession with Willie Nelson's music. It was her most successful single and a crossover smash. However, Willie's earnings were extremely low. The majority was retained by the record labels. He hated the Nashville system after that treachery. Separating from it, he began to pull away. His debut record came out in 1962, and I had a hand in penning it. Popular songs such as It's Strange and Amusing How Quickly Time Passes. Unfortunately, LP sales were low. No one liked the songs when Willie sang them, but everyone else did. In order to put food on the table, he returned to selling Bibles. As a result of his music, everyone else was becoming wealthy. Even now, he had no money. With the 1962 publication of Touch Me by Liberty Records, he was given another opportunity. Top 7 on the country charts was its final destination. However, Willie had no interest in adopting the same polished sound as his contemporary. He desired dominion. To Liberty, that was unacceptable. Therefore, they let him go. His popularity on the charts didn't help him in the end. For the 1963 season, he played bass with Ray Price's band. He was able to tour and perform despite his lack of bass skills. Study the platform. However, he drank excessively during this period. He was involved in a serious car accident one night. It was his last chance. Even though it would take a long time, he began to understand that he had to confront his demons. Nothing was going to happen for Willie Nelson to become a movie star in 1979, but it did. His transformation occurred when he co-starred with Robert Redford in The Electric Horseman. The reserved country singer surprised everyone by stealing the show on camera. But he nevertheless managed to stun everyone with his actions. His actions deviated from the script. Meanwhile, he improvised his lines intoxicated by marijuana. In some way, it was successful. It was a smashing success, earning $12 million. Furthermore, Willie made no effort to assume a false identity. He simply displayed his typical erratic and unpredictable behavior. His world came crashing down at that instant. He possessed qualities beyond those of a mere guitarist. Years had passed since his devastating Nashville rejection, but he was now on the path to that moment. He was released by RCA Records in 1972. Because his sound was unpopular, Willie departed. When he got back to Texas, things started to change. Austin had an interesting music culture that he discovered, full of free-thinking hippies with long hair. Armadillo World headquarters was a little gathering place where peace signs and tie-dye coexisted with outlaws and cowboys. Even Willie was at home. Sitting in a New York hotel room in early 1973, he snatched a box of sanitary napkins and scrawled the words to Shotgun Willie. He started over with that shabby incident. Although it underperformed on a national level, the record was a smash hit in Austin, his entire body of work. Despite its low chart position, #41, it ignited a fight. A new movement emerged, the outlaw country one. In 1975, 2 years down the road, he pulled off an unexpected feat. He recorded Red-Headed Stranger with only $4,000 and complete creative freedom in a modest Texas studio. Nobody liked it on the label. Willie was unmoved by their criticism that it sounded too much like demos. Unfortunately, the album came out at the same time he was playing it. Several platinums were minted. He was hit. He achieved his first #1 with a cover of Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. After 13 years, he still hadn't cracked the top 10. He received his first Grammy for that particular tune. He demonstrated that unfiltered, genuine music might triumph over the slick Nashville system. However, there were gloomy aspects to the success. His breakthrough year was 1976. Worked on Wanted the Outlaws with Wyn Jennings. A few new songs were sprinkled in among the older ones. Despite widespread disbelief, it broke new ground by selling 1 million copies, making it the first country album to do so. No one was prepared for it. On the pop charts, it peaked at number 10. Out of nowhere, the Outlaws became a major concern for Nashville. In 1977, the following year, Willie's reputation as an outlaw took an unusual turn. In the Bahamas, he was taken into custody. Marijuana was discovered in his pants by customs officials. He ended up in prison. While he was in jail, his buddy Hank Cochran brought him beer. The moment Willie was finally free, he leaped through the air and landed in the ER. The judge dismissed the accusations, but he was permanently barred from entering the Bahamas. The prohibition remains in place. Meanwhile, in 1981, Willie was swimming in Hawaii, a sudden, excruciating agony in his chest. He had a collapsed lung. The medical community has identified daily cigarette use as the culprit. As a result, he lost approximately $900,000 and had to cancel 18 shows. He continued to use marijuana after that, but he gave up smoking tobacco. To preserve his remaining lung capacity, he transitioned to vaporizers in subsequent years. A Christmas special featuring Johnny Cash was held in Switzerland in 1984, and he was asked to perform. While Johnny and Kristofferson were filming, he hung out. The music began to play. They had already resolved to start a band by the time they took off for home. The Highwaymen were their self-designated name. Highwayman, their album, was released in 1985. It became platinum. They were a legendary dream team that felt left out of the radio industry's modern era. However, their moniker was not universally beloved. They were sued in 1990 by the Highwaymen, a folk group from the 1960s. They were unsuccessful in their lawsuit, even though one of their number had become a federal judge. Even after finishing their tour, the country music icons maintained their names. The same year that Willie's world closed, it went down. His back taxes were estimated at $32 million by the IRS. As far as music industry financial catastrophes go, it ranks high among the worst. His money had been stashed in illicit tax havens by his accountancy firm, Price Waterhouse. Things including his ranch, studio, and piano were confiscated by the IRS, with golden records. To ensure that they wouldn't also steal his guitar trigger, his daughter concealed it in Hawaii. His friends had to go to auctions and rent him back his belongings. He had no home, no money, and he felt ashamed. Resolving the debt, nobody had ever done what Willie did. An album titled Who Will Buy My Memories was created by him using IRS tapes. He played guitar solo. The Internal Revenue Service received payment for each copy sold. It didn't pay down the full balance, but it contributed to its historical significance. His public conflicts did not end with that. While driving through Texas in 1994, authorities discovered him dozing off in his Mercedes. An ashtray contained a joint of marijuana. Once again he was taken into custody, but this time Willie decided to start advocating for the legalization of marijuana. He made a statement through his arrest. His private suffering intensified alongside the downfall of his public life. Billy, his son, committed suicide on December 25, 1991. At the age of 33, Billy was still quite young. His recent purchased garments and had my hair trimmed only the day prior. Depressive symptoms had been plaguing him. Willie was juggling his tour with his IRS nightmare. He was almost crushed by the loss. That was when he felt the lowest, he recalled. Already his family life was in shambles. Connie, his third wife, saw a hospital bill that revealed he had fathered a kid with another woman. Divorce was finalized in 1988. His fourth wife, Annie D'Angelo, was wed to him by 1991. Willie came clean about his talent for adding unnecessary complexity later on. Controversy followed even his charitable endeavors. To aid small-scale farmers, he established Farm Aid in 1985. 3 years later, they had raised $12 million. Nonetheless, he faced accusations that he had utilized the organization to get tax benefits during his financial crisis. While Willie continued to perform, he came clean in 1995 about the fact that the majority of the proceeds went to farmers who were already seeing their land seized. He was unable to repair the malfunctioning system, and yet he just ended their musical career. He dropped an album that was completely new to him at the age of 65. On September 1, 1998, it was released under the name Teatro. Unlike the majority of musicians, he did not record it in a studio. He was taped it in a historic Oxnard, California, movie theater. The album took on a spooky vibe because of that peculiar decision. Although minimal, the sound was replete with drums and ambience. It was all very dreamy and unfiltered, with Emile Harris singing in the background. My Own Peculiar Way and Darkness on the Face of the Earth, two songs that Willie had penned in the 1960s, were revived by him.
When you were developing a documentary
Thought the meetings were so interesting that he decided to tape them. No Grammys were bestowed upon the record. It revealed something even more potent when it was released. So Willie clearly wasn't scared, without becoming old, without evolving, and without disobeying every single country music rule. People began to appreciate Teatro for what it had become, with its 2017 reissue with 7 additional tracks. Through the years,
in 2008, an even more stunning event occurred.
Willie Nelson's surprise appearance on a track with Snoop Dogg on June 14 shocked fans. Nelson is now 75 years old. In the song My Medicine, you might hear elements of both country and rap. The music video, which was created by Everlast, became popular very fast. The sight of the mysterious redhead rapping alongside a legendary figure from the West Coast was shocking in and of itself. It sparked conversations. A few more senior country music enthusiasts were enraged. Although younger followers adored it, the older generation was against their clean-cut hero collaborating with the notoriously pornographic singer. The group's accomplishment of getting to number 39 in the Dutch charts demonstrated one thing beyond a doubt. Remaining inside the box was of no concern to Willie. It was important to him regarding being authentic. With a powerful enough message, this approach demonstrated how country and hip-hop could blend. Something happened in 2015 that ought to have been cause for complete joy. The Library of Congress presented Willie Nelson with the Gershwin Prize. He was sang on the road again to an enthusiastic crowd in Washington, D.C., despite being 82 years old. However, news broke concerning something very personal as we were celebrating this accomplishment. Not long ago, Willie underwent a stem cell procedure that was considered experimental. He was severe damage to the lungs. Emphysema, years of cigarette smoking, and multiple bouts of pneumonia were his demons. According to his interview with the Washington Post, he was severely injured in the lungs. In an effort to stimulate the regeneration of damaged lung tissue, doctors drew stem cells from his own body and administered them intravenously. He returned to performing within weeks after postponing a few shows to recuperate. Nonetheless, he had difficulty carrying his guitar due to the incisions in his stomach. Bravery was just the beginning. An act of rebellion. When most individuals would have given up by now, Willie continued to sing and the nobody stopped listening. From 1974 to 2020, Willie had garnered 52 nominations for the Grammy Awards. Since then, he has received more Grammy nominations than any other performer. Ride Me Back Home, his best country solo performance from 2020, earned him his 10th Grammy. For his 2018 country album My Way, he took home the trophy. Plus, Summertime 2016 was named Best Traditional Pop Vocal Album, which he won. William Nelson performs Gershwin's music. He won Best Country Collaboration in 2007 for Lost Highway as well. Among the musicians with the most Grammy nominations, he now sits behind Jay-Z, Paul McCartney, and Quincy Jones, and he is placed 14th. The fact that he received these accolades in his late 70s and early 80s further added to their impact. Not only did he persist, but he also continued to develop. He dabbled in pop, jazz, hip-hop, standards, duets in country music, and rap as well. He was never confined to a single sound. For that reason, his life is about more than just country music. It's about adventurous art. At the same time, Annie D'Angelo met Willie Nelson, who was already a legend. However, he was crumbling from the inside out. He was engaging in risky drinking habits. He was progressively ruining himself. Regardless, the Globe continued to see a cheerful country music star. When he wed Annie in 1991, things started to change. She was more than just his spouse. She emerged as his sole hope for deliverance from his own destructive actions. Years ago, while Annie was a cosmetic artist on set, they met. By the time they tied the knot, she had a firm grasp on the pain he was experiencing, and just how vertiginous the prospect of losing it all seemed. No more drinking, no more excuses. She told him straight in an interview from 2024, reiterating the family rule she had imposed on him. I implore you, cease being an hole. Listen, Willie, he started using cannabis instead of alcohol and cigarettes. It restored his sense of vitality, he added. And it had been years since he had felt excitement about performing. Lucas and Micah, their sons, were also raised by them and went on to successful musical careers. Together with their father, they continue to tour today, spreading the song. A horrible event occurred in 2022. Willie was 89 years old when he contracted the devastating COVID-19 virus. While in Nashville on his tour bus, he began to have difficulty breathing. Annie remained calm. She became an emergency hospital on their property in Texas. She administered steroids, monoclonal antibodies, Paxlovid and nebulizer treatments to him. She had her doubts about his survival at one time.
After the fact, Willie remarked that CO was no laughing matter and that the experience was demanding. In addition, stated that it had a negative impact on his psychological well-being. Merle Haggard, who had lungs damaged from smoking for years, was one of several longtime friends he lost during the pandemic. His survival was not anticipated by anyone, however, he returned to the stage only 3 weeks after that. He still had more to accomplish though, and everyone was taken aback. His admirers were startled yet again in 2024. Willie was 91 years old when he canceled 7 performances on the Outlaw Music Festival tour. Anxieties was high. False images of him in a hospital bed quickly went viral online, spreading rumors. According to one, his son Lucas even indicated he was in a critical condition, except that it was false. It was merely exhaustion. Constant touring had taken its toll on him, and his emphysema was suddenly acting up. But as is usual of Willie, he recovered quickly and continued performing. During the picnic he had in New Jersey on July 4th, he calmly responded, "I'm 91 plus. I don't hurt anywhere, I don't feel bad. I'm not worried about dying." This was in the 1960s, a long time ago, before. Despite this, Willie met Kristofferson, another man who would have a profound impact on his life. As outsiders in Nashville, they were both attempting to carve out a niche for themselves with unique musical styles. Prior to pursuing music as a career, Kris held the positions of Rhodes Scholar and Army Captain. Willie noticed an unusual quality in him. One of Kris's songs, "Me and Bobby McGee," was covered by Willie in 1971. For the outlaw country movement, that was a formative moment. Years down the road, in 1979, Willie put out an album that was virtually exclusively composed by Kristofferson. Kris, he claimed time and time again, was the one who made him fearless in standing out. Their 1984 film, Songwriter, was a collaboration. The two icons battled the music industry as they portrayed doppelgangers of one another. They fed off each other's enthusiasm and improvised numerous sequences on site, sometimes while high. The film was an accurate portrayal of the anguish they had both experienced. An old tune of Willie's, "Nightlife," was sold for a meager $150. More than 70 musicians covered the song, and it went on to sell over 30 million copies. Such plot points were presented in the film. The score that Kris composed for it was even nominated for an Academy Award. Next up was Farm Aid. 80,000 people attended the inaugural performance in 1985. Kris and Willie were standing shoulder to shoulder on that stage. Martin Luther King Jr. and other heroes were honored by Kris as he sang, "They Killed Him." A.L. King Jr. They worked through numerous Farm Aid stages together, although their opinions weren't always in sync. Kris swung to the left. Freedom was important to Willie. Although they had many disagreements, their friendship endured due to their profound regard for one another. As a tribute to Kris, Willie sang, "Help Me Make It Through the Night" in 2024, following his death. The entire audience broke down in tears. Since 2009, Kris's life has been a living nightmare. His memory loss became so severe that he lost track of time from 1 second to the next. The doctors suspected boxing-related injury or dementia. He faded from public view for a long time. Finally, someone tested him for Lyme disease in early 2016. The true reason was that, within 3 weeks of beginning treatment, he began to show signs of improvement. All the while, Willie was right there with him. He continued their friendship even after Kris lost all memory of his own songs and visited him in Hawaii. On September 28, 2024, Willie was deeply affected by Kris Kristofferson's passing. Months later, during an intimate interview, in an interview with the Associated Press, he expressed his long-held sentiments. While he was alive, Kris was the best songwriter. Even though Kris had already left, he still said it. Perhaps he regretted not saying it sooner. He informed everyone that Kris had left behind a wealth of music that will be enjoyed for years to come. A sense of remorse weighed on the words. Even after 6 decades of performing music, Willie had unspoken thoughts he regretted not expressing. There was more agony for Willie. He showed the world his broken heart in that very interview. "I hated to see him go," he confessed. "Those were sorrowful times." Though brief, those few remarks struck a chord with his devoted followers since they had witnessed him persevere through it all. 2 other highwaymen, one Jennings in 2002 and Johnny Cash in 2003, had already been laid to rest by him. At this point he only one remaining. After forming their supergroup in 1985, they dominated country music for 10 years. Even their debut record was a smashing success. But now Willie was all by himself. No one had any idea how profound his loss was. It wasn't merely the passing of a close associate. Being the last one standing was a heavy burden. Willie shocked everyone that year when he revealed something unexpected in another interview. While his career was in shambles, he confessed that Kris Kristofferson's music had salvaged it. Prior to Chris's death, he never mentioned it. On Sunday morning, he brought up "Coming Down," the 1970 Johnny Cash recording that went on to win a Grammy. According to Willie, that song saved him from falling into despair on multiple occasions. His only hope had been Kristofferson's advice: "Help me get through the night, for the good times," and "Me and Bobby McGee" were among the other songs he discussed. Willie found solace in such songs whenever he felt disoriented. According to him, Chris's music revived country music. "I wasn't merely inspired, staying alive was the only goal."